If you look at a child, if you look into their eyes, if you look into their soul, they are the definition to me of innocence. They are pure innocence. They should never feel pain. They should never be scared. They should just be living life. Every child should be living life minute to minute, day to day, hour to hour, just feeling happy like nothing in the world matters. Obviously, when you tell them they can't have a toy, they're going to get upset, but that's just life. But they should never have to worry about whether it be cancer, whether they're in a bad situation at home, whether they're just afraid because their parents are in a bad situation financially or their own health. But really, they should never feel pain. It's not fair. It's not right. They have done nothing wrong in life. So I was like, how do I do this? How do I help kids? I was like, oh, you know what? I'll do Toys for Tots. I'm in the Marine Corps. Why not? When you do good comes too, I feel. So it's for, you should do it for, not for selfish reasons. You want to help people, but it's good for your soul. It's good for your mind. It's good for your body.
Great title for a podcast, Blessings.
Thank you. Yes, I love it.
What a great meditation.
We are here to learn in the spirit of life.
I'm all about believe. You're about spreading blessings. It's great.
What about your blessings? What's the biggest blessing of life?
What a great question.
Because it's the Blessings podcast, I have to ask you, what is your biggest lesson in life?
My biggest lesson in life.
A whole lot of conversations with people about life and how those things manifest as blessings and lessons, and sometimes both.
It's my connection.
You're going to get schooled.
The journey is the journey.
What you and me are searching for are the blessings in this life.
Remember the reality of how sweet people are.
Spread blessings around the world.
You are the most remarkable energy. You make me pause, make me excited, make me think, and make me spontaneously come up with an answer. This is another one of those great moments in time in my life. Thank you for reaching out to ask if I would do the show.
Welcome back to Blessings, friends. Today, I am sitting down with the founder of Slice of Charity, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting children, veterans, and underserved communities, spearheaded by entrepreneur and Marine Corps veteran Anthony Suppa. Anthony owns Frantoni's restaurant in New York, and over the years, he noticed how many people are in need, and he had the calling to help as many of those people as he can. When you're part of the community like that, people coming in and out of your restaurant, you get to see a slice of humanity in a unique way. And there comes a time when you can't sit by and watch people struggle without wanting to step in. And that's what Anthony has done with his life. He has a heart of gold, and I can't wait for him to inspire you. Welcome, Anthony Suppa, to the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good afternoon, Mitzi.
Good afternoon. So, was there a pivotal moment when you thought, I just cannot stand by anymore. I need to help this person?
Well, I've been doing toy drives for about 13 years for Tots. But I don't know, about 8 months ago, I just came to the realization, I was like, I want to do this more. I want to do it bigger. I want to do it better. So that's why I founded Slice of Charity, to really see how far and how much I can do for people. There's a gentleman that we are helping. His name is Sean Swift. His son is 3 years old, tragically lost his mother almost exactly 1 year ago to the date in a car accident. And then a couple months later, after dealing with the loss of his mother and Sean dealing with the loss of his wife, he was diagnosed with cancer. So I would definitely say, considering that I have young kids, that it hit me a little bit differently with Sean because my kids are right around the same age. And I reached out to Sean. I was like, listen, we got to do something. We got to help you. He's a veteran also. I said, we got to put something together. And if every organization comes together to help, we can make the biggest impact. And that's what Slice of Charity is also founded for. We want to bring as many organizations together so we can make the biggest impact, so we can help as many people as possible. So to answer your question, as I detour a little bit, there wasn't necessarily one specific person or one specific incident that brought me to this. I've just always felt the need to help people. I don't know why. You can ask my friends, you can ask my family. I was always the blanket. Anybody needed help with anything, I would go above and beyond in my powers to help them. So it's just something that came natural to me. So that's why I think that Slice of Charity in a short amount of time has been very successful. We've raised, Slice of Charity was only really started in September of last year, 2024. That's when we got the 501c3 approval from the IRS. And since that day, we have raised over 4,500 toys, probably closer to 5,500 toys, thousands and thousands of dollars. We've written checks to different people and different organizations that are including in the future, Sean too. We're going to be writing him a check to help him get through some of his financial needs because he is now a single parent and he has no help. He doesn't have a lot of family. He doesn't really have much of any family at this point. His wife family's not around. So we just feel like, you know what, if you can help, it's not hard. It's not like it's going to take away from your own life. Just reach a lending hand, a shoulder, somebody to talk to. It doesn't always have to be financially. It can be emotionally.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is a great overview of everything that you're involved in. So I want to unpack some of that. I love that you just called yourself a blanket. That really struck me. Is that a term you use for people who help other people? I never heard that before.
It's a term that growing up, a couple of friends and family members used to use towards me. So they used to say that I was their security blanket. They knew if I was around, they were going to be safe. They knew nothing was going to, listen, when you're growing up, you're young, you get into disagreements and arguments with people, or you're in a position that maybe you can't get out of, whether it be a bad situation with a group of friends that maybe are saying, oh, let's do this and let's do that. And I was just never afraid to be like, nah, I'm good. You, so-and-so, let's go, let's get out of here. It just didn't bother me. So growing up, I've had a couple specific friends and family members that be like, you are like my security blanket. I know if you're there, like everything's going to be okay. And it's
That's a beautiful thing. Wow. What a beautiful term.
Yeah. And it's not to sit there and talk myself up or anything like that. It's just one of my life experiences. It's the truth. It's the reality.
Do you think that's one of your purposes in life, is to provide safety and security for others?
I would like to believe that's true for my family, my wife and kids, if nothing else.
But it seems like you do that for a lot of people. So did you start out with the Toys for Tots thing? Was that how it started?
Yeah, that's exactly how it started. So again, I was in the Marine Corps, and at the time when I started doing the Toys for Tots drives, I was just a employee of Frantoni's, manager.
Oh, okay.
So Frantoni's has 3 locations: East Meadow, Williston Park, and Woodbury. The founders of Frantoni is actually Steve Mistretta, Mike Mistretta, Donna Newman, and their parents, who it's actually named after, Fran and Tony, Frantoni.
Oh, okay.
So I worked with them for many years. I worked really shoulder to shoulder with Mike, and Mike taught me a lot. He saw potential in me, and he's basically said to me, he was like, listen, if you want to make this a career, we want to expand our business, we would love to have you on and grow with us. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Fast forwards now, 18 years I've been with them, and we opened up Woodbury 6 years ago. But I started doing the Toys for Tots 13 years ago just because I wanted to. It was just like, all right, listen, children, there's something that I don't know why I've said this now for a while. If you look at a child, if you look into their eyes, if you look into their soul, they are the definition to me of innocence. They are pure innocence. They should never feel pain. They should never be scared. They should just be living life. Every child should be living life minute to minute, day to day, hour to hour, just feeling happy, like nothing in the world matters. Obviously, when you tell them they can't have a toy, they're going to get upset, but that's just life. But they should never have to worry about whether it be cancer, whether they're in a bad situation at home, whether they're just afraid because their parents are in a bad situation financially or their own health. But they should never feel pain. It's not fair. It's not right. They're done nothing wrong in life. Now, when you're an adult, you make your own decisions. Some are good, some are bad. There's not as much empathy for an adult I have than as much for a child. So to get back to the Toys for Tots, I was like, how do I do this? How do I help kids? I was like, oh, you know what? I'll do Toys for Tots. I'm in the Marine Corps. Why not? So we started out. There was probably 40 people at the restaurant the first time we ever did it. Probably 25 of them were friends and family of mine. And over the course of so many years, we grew this toy drive to being 40 people to where December of 2024, we hosted 1,300 people at Ohika Castle. And it was a free event. It was a 3-hour event with the help of Ohika Castle, who donated the room, desserts, and open bar. We covered the food, the entertainment, obviously the getting the people to come, like advertising. And it was a free event, open bar, food, dessert, dancing, DJ, VJ, violinist, saxophonist, Italian singer. It was crazy. It was a wedding at Ohika Castle. But when you do good, good comes too, I feel. So you should do it for, not for selfish reasons. You want to help people, but it's good for your soul. It's good for your mind. It's good for your body. It's just, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with taking a little time out and trying to help somebody else.
Yeah, I think we help ourselves by helping others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We do. Yeah. So was there something in your time before you started this that made children stand out to you as these innocent beings who deserved love and needed help? Like when you were in the Marines or something, did anything happen in your life, a childhood experience?
I wouldn't say that as much as I think like that was always something in me that I felt, but I think I realized it, or at least it came to tuition to me when I had kids. And thank God for myself. Every parent has a little bit of scares here and there with kids, whether it be health or mental or this or that. Thank God my kids are healthy, safe. But during those brief scares, you say to yourself, and especially after the fact when you find out everything's okay, God forbid, I couldn't imagine what another person is going through that actually didn't have that same outcome as myself. So whether it be a parent or a child that's sick, I can't imagine, and I don't want to imagine what they're feeling. All I know is that for certain situations, it's not fair and they shouldn't be feeling that, but we can't change that, but we can change it for a moment.
Yeah. And so can you give us a story about something that might have happened that sparks that for you?
Listen, when my first son was, before he was born, the doctors gave us a scare. And I honestly don't remember exactly what it was, but they were telling us that they found something in blood tests that could result to certain illnesses. And this was during COVID. So I wasn't allowed to go in to these meetings with my wife. So my wife comes out, I'm at work, and she calls me up hysterical crying. She's, I don't understand what the doctor is trying to tell me. She's 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And
that's so terrifying.
I called the doctors and I took a little bit of time to get somebody on the phone, unfortunately. But I was like, you need to explain to me what is going on right now. Because you're telling my wife, who's 7 months pregnant, something that she's barely even comprehending at the moment because she's pregnant, number one. And number two, we're not doctors. We don't know what this ultimately means. And, that was a significant scare. And again, thank God, it was a scare that didn't come to light. It was just a scare that was a scare. So we got past it, we got over it, and we moved on. That's one of many significant situations, at least in my life.
Right. And when we tell those stories, it really helps other people connect because thank God everything turned out okay. But everyone goes through little things like that. Yeah, and it's really important, I think, to put emphasis on those types of experiences because it's not just the people who have tragic experiences that we need to use those experiences to help us develop gratitude and be looking toward helping others, but also all these little things like you're talking about, these little scares, little wake-up calls. There's something really significant about that, little wake-up calls. It doesn't have to be something like really horrible, although it can be. And then when you talk about your friend Sean, so were you friends with Sean?
So Sean was actually used to work, even before me, used to work for Frantoni's as a counterboy and then a delivery driver. And he stayed in contact with a couple of the owners, Mike, Steve. I didn't know him really up until about 3 years ago. That's when I really was introduced to him. And this was before anything happened in his life. It was just through passing at the restaurant. And I would say now over the past couple of months, I've become friends with him because of everything. But prior to that, no, I wasn't friends with him, but I just knew of his situation. And
Okay.
I knew that there was something that we could do to help him.
Yeah. I want to point this out because what you describe with Sean is really significant, because you had this guy who was just in your world. You didn't really know him well, but he was one of those people, like we all have people that we see them, we walk by them. Maybe you notice them here and there. Maybe it's somebody who goes to your gym. Maybe it's somebody, that works in an office building down the hall from you, or whatever it is. You don't really know them and you don't know what's going on in their life. And then one day you become better acquainted with something about them that builds a connection. And for you, your natural drive to want to help people, it brings those people into your life. It's very interesting the way that works.
Like a magnet. Yeah.
Exactly. And so knowing Sean actually gave you the opportunity as you developed your business wasn't even developed yet. Your nonprofit wasn't even developed yet.
No, not even close.
So interesting. And then it turns out that he is somebody who could really benefit. So you spread out way beyond giving toys away. And by the way, I don't minimize. I think giving toys to children is absolutely, it brings them joy. It connects them. And imagine being a child that doesn't receive a gift. And I know that that's interesting now that I'm talking about it, saying that out loud. My mom, when she was growing up, never received a gift. She grew up in poverty. Yep, in England, and it was in the 1940s and 50s, so it was a long time ago. But there are children who don't receive gifts still today in the United States of America, and so Toys for Tots is huge. I think as a teacher, gosh, I remember when I worked in a school district that was very low income, and one of the things we did was take the kids to a Toys for Tots, and they went in and they were each able to select a toy.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Listen, everybody says it, but to see them smile like that, to give them that joy, even just for a moment, for some kids that will last a lifetime.
Yeah,
some kids it won't, but some it will.
I think it will stick with them in some way. I do think sometimes it takes time for them to understand the significance. There are kids who probably realize how amazing that is and are very grateful in the moment, and there are other kids who won't realize the significance
till years
of that.
Later.
Yeah, till years later. And it doesn't matter, like whatever the time is, it's all about people getting to learn these things in their own time.
Yeah,
and
their own, it's affecting them differently through different stages of their life.
Exactly. So I love that you found so much fulfillment in the Toys for Tots that you had to take it a step further. And now you have this organization that actually is able to give these gifts to people in need. So I'm going to just say, we'll put all the information in the show notes for people who are in need and would like to apply or get in touch with you. And also for people who want to get involved and help. So that's going to be available in the show notes for you.
I mean, very simple, sliceofcharity.org. Just
okay.
Send a message. It's very simple. Follow us on Instagram, share it. That's what I tell people too, that people like, how do we help? How do we get involved? How do we get involved? I'm like, listen, right now, the best thing for anybody to do, for me to get involved, is not necessarily even donate. If you can donate, great. That is amazing. But just spread the word. Share the Slice of Charity Instagram. Like it. It's just about spreading the word. The more people we have that know about us, the more power, in a sense, we have where we can make a change. And that comes back to bringing other organizations together. So what I've learned is that sometimes organizations are very, for lack of a better word, selfish, especially nonprofits. So my biggest thing with Slice of Charity is we work as a team. I don't care if you're the founder of another organization or if you're volunteering. I don't care what it is. We work as a team. We all come together, and that's how we're going to make a bigger impact. It doesn't need to be just about that organization when we're all working together. Like a big thing with Slice of Charity is at the end of 2025, I hope to have fundraised enough money that I can turn around and write checks to other organizations, to CARS organization, or what we're actually doing a lot of work with the Ronald McDonald House. And I've even done a lot of work before Slice of Charity. But we're in the process right now of trying to raise 6,000 meals for them for over the summer. Because that's another perfect example. Over the summer, everybody's on their boat. They're vacationing. They're enjoying their life, which they should be, 100%.
I'm not on my boat, but I'd love to be.
Yeah, but Ronald McDonald's House is a perfect example, or at least one that I'm familiar with. I'm sure there's many more where they're forgotten about. They straight out told me that we don't have food to feed these families that are staying at the Ronald McDonald's House because their children are extremely sick and in the hospital. So I was like, okay, we're going to do something about this. We're going to figure it out. This was about 6 months ago. Again, before I started Slice of Charity, 6 months ago, I dropped off a couple of thousand toys to them. And I was in Ronald McDonald's House and I was talking to them. And I was talking about food because I was donating food to them also. And I was like, hey, do you guys have the ability to store food for, let's just say, a couple of weeks in a freezer before obviously anything would obviously go bad? So are you able to do that and then take it out and defrost it so that over time you can build up a surplus of enough food to get you past those 3 months in the summer so that you don't have to worry about not feeding these families? And yeah, we could do that. We do that somewhat. I was like, well, how big are your freezers? We have 2 reach-in freezers where you just pull the door in and you reach it like a normal freezer, not like a restaurant freezer. So I was like, okay, so, well, number one, first things first is we got to get you another freezer. That's number one. So we have it. We haven't brought it over yet because we're trying to coordinate everything at once for the most part. But, and then it was like, now we have to figure out how to get them meals, right? Now, how do we, and I called it, let's call it fill the freezer. How do we fill the freezers? So we are running excuse me, I can't even think anymore. Sorry. We are running to try to get 6,000 meals to them. And we figure that the average meal is going to cost about $10. So the fundraiser's goal doesn't mean we're going to reach that goal, but it'd be great if we do, would be $60,000. It's not easy to achieve by any means.
Yeah.
Fundraising is one of the most difficult things. So God willing, we will hit our goal and we will be able to get Ronald McDonald House past those 3 months where those families don't have food. Ronald McDonald's House is supposed to feed, I believe, the families at least one meal, which is dinner, every day. That's their goal. We have to feed them dinner every day. But they do more than that. They feed them lunch, they feed them breakfast, they do other meals throughout the day if they are able to. But the minimum they're supposed to do is one dinner or one meal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I think Ronald McDonald House is one of the best charities. I know you have to do your due diligence with charities. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's why I like talking to you who's running this charity, because when you can really talk to the person who's in charge and see where things are actually going and there's no wasted administration costs. Like a lot of these charities, they get so huge and there's all these crazy administration costs that, you know, your money isn't really going where you think it's going. And that's why it's nice to have something that you can keep small enough that you can manage it and still have everything going to actually helping the people. And I know Ronald McDonald House is one of those organizations. When my sister was a little girl, she had open heart surgery at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And my parents stayed at the Ronald McDonald House and they couldn't afford to stay in a hotel at that time. It was a long time ago, but I remember how much that meant to them and how they set that up so they could stay and be with her.
Yeah.
And families need that. And having that meal, if your child is going through something traumatic, the last thing that you want to have to worry about is, where am I going to eat? How am I going to get dinner? And how am I going to pay for it? Like, it's just beautiful.
And then you have your other children that are, thank God, healthy, that might be with you.
Yeah.
And you still have to take care of them. You can't put them to the side.
Yeah.
So to make it a little bit easier for them to be able to take care of their children that are, thank God, healthy and doing well, but at the same time, be able to really focus on a child that needs the focus or the attention, that's got to be massive for these families and for these parents.
Definitely. How would you like to get the best text of your life? This is your sign that it's time to add something powerful to your morning routine that sets you up for success and reminds you that you are worthy and makes you unstoppable. It's a motivational text message from me, a real human. I am Mitzi Campbell, a mindset specialist, and I know that it is possible for you to live the life of your dreams. My morning motivational text messages help you up-level your mindset, your happiness, and your success. Sign up for a 2-week free trial at yourpositivemoment.com and change your life today. Join the movement so we can all thrive together. yourpositivemoment.com. Yeah, it's just wonderful what you're doing. And I want to talk a little bit about your character and what shaped you. And so, of course, that brings me to your service in the military, which thank you very much for your service.
Mhm.
My daughter is in the Army right now. She
Oh,
is,
very nice.
yeah, she's getting her PhD in psychology at the Armed Services University right now in Bethesda. And so I've learned a lot about the military and like the kind of person it takes to be able to devote your life, because you do take an oath to devote your life to the country. And I think that's just, it can't be overstated, the importance of that. We need those people. We need people like you to do that, to make that commitment. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. What made you decide to be a Marine? Because that's no
Well,
joke.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. There was a friend of mine. His name was Eugene. He's my best friend still to this day. When we were in high school, I'm going into the Marines. We're going into the Marines. That's all he used to talk about. And I used to say, this guy, he's crazy, Marines. What's wrong with him? I tell him, what's wrong? What are you doing going into the military? So he did. As soon as we graduated high school, essentially a couple of months later, he left and he went to Paris Island. And I went, and his father and his sisters were like, you got to come to his graduation. You got to come to his graduation. I'm like, oh. I was taking classes in National Community College. I was working, but barely working. I was like, I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if I can do this. I can do that. So actually, Eugene's father was like, I'm paying for your plane ticket. You just pay me back whenever you can. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went, and I was so utterly impressed with the structure and the discipline. I remember watching the graduation ceremony, and I was like, wow. I was like, I think this could ultimately mold me and make and guide me into a better place in my life in the future and as an adult, and with God willing, with family and kids. And this, because I was 18 years old at the time, and I was going to the National Community College, and I wasn't a great student by any means. So I was like, I don't know what to do. I was always wanted to be self-employed, but at the time it wasn't realistic. I was like, self-employed, what am I going to do? So I was like, this might help me make sure that I go down the right path instead of being a potential college dropout and not being able to really grow and support my family that I always thought about, even as a kid, that I always knew I want a family, I want kids, I want a wife. But I knew how expensive and how difficult it was to support them. But after seeing what it did for Eugene and watching the ceremonies and watching these hundreds of Marines marching down the parade deck, I was like, wow, this is impressive. I was like, I think I'm going to look into this. So sure enough, I got home. I spoke with Eugene more, obviously, when I was there. Spoke with him when I got home and started speaking to a recruiter. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history.
Wow.
But if you asked me 6 months before, I would have been like, no way. I'm going to be in the Marines? No chance. Yeah. But that's what changed my life to go into the actual military, was that experience.
Okay. Yeah. That is a turning point in life, that 18, 19, 20-ish time. And there are a lot of people who struggle at that time to make it over the hump and I think it's even harder. It just gets harder and harder as like the world changes. Like it's much harder to be prosperous.
Yeah.
And so finding like the path, like I love that you found that path. So I know, that in the Marines, it's a very tough program and you have to go through a lot of training. And one of the things we hear about is Hell Week, right?
Yeah.
How did you make it through that experience? Can you, and if you can talk, I'm not asking you to disclose anything that's like a secret, but if you can talk about anything that was the worst thing you had to go through.
It was actually a crazy experience because for us during Hell Week, you're out in essentially the woods, call it, for a week, and you're living off the land, basically.
Do they give you any supplies?
Yeah, they give you everything you need. They give you food, they give you shovels, and they give you where we have plenty of equipment to make it through, tents and blankets and stuff. But for us, in the middle of it, I think it was a hurricane that came through, and there was tornadoes. So for a day or two, I don't remember exactly how much, we had to go back to the barracks. So we were like, oh, thank God.
You got lucky.
Yeah, we got lucky for that. But with the military, the physical part of it, listen, you have to have a certain standard before you can even go to boot camp. There's certain tests essentially you have to pass.
Yes.
But they know that physically there's a low bar, and they got to build you up. And they're going to build you up. So at the end of basic training, when I first walked in there, I was running 1.5 miles, and I was like gassed. And I was like, oh my God. By the end of it, we were running 10 miles like it was nothing. But the part that people overlook and don't talk about, I feel like ever, and not that it's a bad thing, I think it's a good thing because you have to have a certain mental outlook on things. They break you down and rebuild you mentally is what they do. And that is the true definition, not definition, but the true meaning behind a Marine is, yes, you're physically in shape. Yes, you can do all these crazy tasks, but it's the mental part, it's the discipline that they break you down and then rebuild you that really makes you into a Marine, or any armed forces for that matter, I believe. I can only speak for the Marine Corps because that's what I do.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting, the psychology of it all. And it just makes me think right off the cuff, I think there's a lot of people who could use that, just a clean slate. Like mindset wise, people who are struggling, and it's not in a harsh way, but just wouldn't it be interesting if we could just say, all right, forget everything you ever learned, forget all your experiences, all your trauma, everything, and let's just start with a clean slate and build you back up. Wouldn't that be?
But I think that everybody has the ability to do that. Not that it's easy.
But do they realize it?
Do they realize it is the biggest thing?
And are they willing to do it?
Yes, but everybody has the ability to stop, refresh themselves. It's not going to be over like when you refresh your computer in 5 seconds, but you need to stop and refresh and make changes, and make small changes. Doesn't have to be massive changes. At least this is my opinion. I'm not a doctor, psychiatrist.
No, I think you're right. No, go with your gut instincts. I think it's important to go with their gut. That's how it works.
Yes. Listen, I was doing Toys for Tots, and I was doing fundraisers before Slice of Charity. But over the course of years, I saw myself getting, although we were building Slice Charity and making it big, building the toy drives and getting bigger each year, I felt myself, like my inner self, getting further and further away from that charity, that goal, that empathy, that being able to help people as much as I could, more and more. And that was actually one of the turning points with Slice of Charity, where I was like, I'm done with this. No more. This isn't me. I'm not just work, meaning like just focused on the restaurant, so to speak. Just focus on this. I was like, you got to focus on the restaurant. You got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on work. You need income. But I was like, you got to take a step back. I was like, you've always had it. And I've literally had a conversation with myself, basically. I was like, you've always wanted to take things to the next level, help people, be that type of person, and almost build a legacy in a sense of, this was a good person. This was a good man. He did what he could as much as he could. So I reset a little bit, and I was like, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And I always called my toy drives, whether it was on flyers or just in my head, it was always called Operation Slice of Charity, because we were a restaurant, we had pizza.
Yep.
So I was like, that's a cool name. I was like, I like that. Operation Slice of Charity was actually around for a very long time. But then when I started the 501c3 a couple of months ago, I was like, Slice of Charity. I was like, it doesn't have to just be about food, but I just feel like I like that name. I like the ring, Slice of Charity.
I love it.
I just took it upon myself to say, enough, stop, do what you love, do what really brings you joy. And I want my kids to see, I want my kids to learn. I want them, not to say that, I want them to see that not everybody is as fortunate as them. And yes, we're not as fortunate as others, but there's always people that have less or are going through something harder than you to take a step back, maybe take a breath and just say, okay, this person maybe is having a bad day. Maybe there's something more in their life going on that I don't know about. So I think it's a good learning point for my children.
It absolutely is. And you just said something interesting about leaving a legacy. What do you think you would really like to hear people say about you if they're at your funeral?
Yeah, God willing, that's in many years from now. But
Yes.
listen, it's very simple. The first and most important thing for me would be like, he was an amazing father, he was an amazing husband. That's really, at the end of the day, all that matters to me. But at the same time, there's always stages, right? There's always the certain levels of what's the most important. Those are the most important. But then he was a good person. He helped people. I would like to, God willing, my children will continue doing Slice of Charity and continue to run an organization in their spare time and help people.
Yeah, that would be amazing. What do you see veterans in particular struggling with the most?
Listen, when you first come out of the military, and everyone I spoke to, and including myself, at least in the Marine Corps, you're held in the Marine Corps, you're held to a certain standard, such a high standard, and you're told your entire time in, if you ever do anything wrong, the first thing is going to be that you're a Marine, and that's what everyone's going to notice. So not only are you shaming us, you're shaming yourself, you're shaming the whole Marine Corps, right? But with that being said, they also talk about how, like, you're a Marine. If you do leave, your work is guaranteed. This is guaranteed. They like make all these, I don't want to say false promises, but, and maybe we make it up in our heads as Marines, what we're hearing. But leaving the Marine Corps, every single person I know has gone from a high to a low mentally within the first year, because you're in such a mature career path. You're basically, you're an adult, or at least you should be an adult, even when you're 19 years old. So then let's just say if you're in for 4 years, so you get in when you're 18 or 19 and you get out when you're 22 or 23. In this world, 22 or 23 is still not an adult. You're an adult, but you're a kid, right? You're an adult, but you're a kid. They expect minimal from you, especially nowadays, where you expect so much from yourself that when you're not getting the progress that you want, that it takes a real big toll on you. And you go through this mental low that I went through, that everyone, and I have many friends that were even local that were in the Marine Corps, not just the friends I made in the Marine Corps. In high school, there's about 4 or 5 kids that I actually knew, some older than me, some my age, some younger, that went through the Marines. And everyone went through the same thing. And that's a big thing that people, I think, need to talk about. It's not just always about PTSD or being injured, but it's about when they get out, real expectations, and helping them, guide them to really through that first year of, okay, you're not going to walk out and just get a job and get a career, right? You're going to have to start somewhere, just like anybody else. Do you have a college degree? Some don't. Okay, if you don't, you're limited. So a big thing I tell anybody that ever asks me now, if they're going in or if they're in, get your college degree. It's paid for while you're in the military. Just get it. Even if you get 50% of it in the 4 years, get as much as you can so that when you are out, it gives you another stepping stone. Yes, being in the military helps, being in the Marines help when you apply for a job, but only if you have the qualifications for it also.
Job, right?
Big thing is teaching kids that are getting out of the military to keep their expectations where they should be. And not to say don't strive, but realize you're still going to have to make certain steps to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Is there a support system for that transition period?
I don't, listen, the military has certain things, but I wouldn't say to the degree of what I'm speaking about. I don't believe that there is, because everybody I know didn't know where it was, and I don't know where it is still to this day. There is. So if anybody is ever getting out of the military, whether they're 45 or 24, they can always send me an email, anthony@slicecharity.org, or reach out onto slicecharity.org. And I'm not going to have every answer for them, but I might have a little bit, just so maybe people don't have to go to that total low to be like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not who I am.
Right.
So,
yeah. It feels like there needs to be some, I'm sure there are some specific therapists and coaches that help people during that period, but it's private and then you'll have to find them. Wouldn't it be interesting to create like a network where veterans could just be like, okay, here's a list of people I can choose from to talk
Yeah.
to help me through
I mean,
this.
listen, you can always go to the VA, of course, right?
Oh,
So you
yes.
always have
Mhm.
that ability. A lot of times it takes a lot of veterans a long time to take that first step once they get out, because they don't want to admit something's wrong. They're afraid to admit something's wrong. Again, there's a lot of the Marine Corps guys, oh, I'm a Marine.
They're
Oh,
tough.
great, congratulations.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're not struggling, buddy.
It doesn't mean you're not human.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and again, it's just if you want to stay in, be a lifer, that's fantastic. If you don't, if you want to get out and you want to do different things with your life, and it's not to say that every single person when they get out is going to go through that, but I never met anybody in the Marine Corps that didn't, at least.
Yeah.
But understand, pick yourself up, wipe yourself off,
Yeah.
and move forwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
since you started this charity, have you noticed that there is an uptick of people in need?
I wouldn't say I've noticed more than really knowing before starting it, only because I think that unless you don't want to see it, unless you're ignorant to it, you as a human, you know that there are so many people out there that just need help. And it's not to say that one person is better than the other because they're helping this person. Maybe I need help. I don't know. But
The helpers usually need help too.
That's right,
The
you know.
healers need healing. The doctors need doctoring. It's
Yes.
all
it's all
it's all a
full
circle of life. Yep.
Yeah. So I just think that almost every single person out there, one way or another, needs help.
Yeah.
Could just be something easily as a conversation or as deep as medicine. You could be sick with cancer or different illnesses, but
Yeah.
I think everybody needs help one way or the other.
Yeah. And I think the tricky part is how to find those people, because a lot of times, like you said, with the Marines, they don't want to ask for help.
Yeah, it's tricky, but it's not tricky in a sense where if you just listen,
Yeah.
just listen to people, have
Just
conversations
listen.
with people.
Just
If you
have
listen, you're
conversations.
going to find it. It's out there.
Yeah.
You know, we helped.
Connect.
One of the first people that we helped was a gentleman. His name was Sal, and he was a pizza man in Long Island. He was making pizza behind the counter, opening up a couple months ago. They were just setting up the counter, and just out of nowhere, a coworker came up behind him and just started stabbing him. And because this coworker, from my understanding, had an issue with another coworker, and this gentleman Sal was like 60 years old, innocent bystander, from my understanding, was stabbed multiple times. So this was on News 12. So I'm sitting in my restaurant and I'm listening to News 12, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I have to help this man. I was like, I got to figure something out. So I called News 12. I said, listen, please, if you can, my name is Anthony Suppa. I'm from Slice of Charity. Can you pass on my information to this family? I'd love to figure out something to help them. And I didn't even know how I would be able to help them, if I could help them. I was like, I just have to. So they did. And the daughter reached out to me. And over the past couple of months now, thank God, he has went from basically he's not going to live to now he's out of the hospital and now on his next healing process, because there's a big mental part of that too. And he's not 100% out of the woods physically, but you know, we were able to help them. We were able to fundraise for them. This was right before Christmas. So we were able to write them a check. Granted, it probably wasn't as much as I wanted it to be, because I want to write everyone $100,000 check, but we were able to help them. But I think, you know what, now I'm going to rewind a little bit to touch base about something that you asked me about 15 minutes ago. And it's not to get political or anything of that nature. Something that I'll never, ever forget, and I don't think anybody will forget now. I remember during the October 7th attacks, I didn't understand it with Israel and Hamas, what exactly was going on at that moment in time. And regardless of where you are in that world, I just remember seeing children on both ends of the aspect experiencing things that they never should experience. Again, I don't care who you are. It is your job as a parent to teach what you believe is right to your children. But as a child is innocent, they are pure innocence. They are this empty shell, essentially, that is going to be built by the world around them and what they experience to make them be who they are. So I would never forget saying to myself a couple of months in after everything, like, I have to figure out how to get toys and supplies to all these people, whoever they are. I just remember seeing on the news, I remember seeing a little girl specifically who was captured. And again, I don't care what side you're on, but I just remember seeing her and seeing her face. And I believe she was returned. And I was like, I need to get specifically to this little girl. I was like, I need to get her a toy. I need to get her something. This girl needs to feel happiness.
Yeah.
And I just remember that. I think that was actually a big driving point for me for Slice of Charity. Speaking to you, not realizing it until talking to you, actually coming to that realization just now.
Wow.
But again, I don't care what side you're on for whoever is listening, because I don't want to make it political or anything of that sort of nature. The children are children. And
Yes.
that's what I care about. I don't care
Right, yeah.
anything else.
No, atrocities against children, I think they touch everyone. Nobody wants to see a child suffering or hurt. It's just, it's like unthinkable, especially if you're a parent.
Yeah.
So I get that. That was a horrific to watch the things unfolding. It was just horrible. The whole thing. It's terrible. But
it's just,
with you. But but when things like that happen in the world, and we can make a difference in some way that fits for us. And I love that you saw a story on the news and you actually reached out and were able to help that person. A lot of us feel like we're powerless, like we don't have the power, but we do.
You do, 100%. I was actually asked that question about 2 months ago. Somebody was interviewing me and they asked me, like, how do you get done what you got to get done? How do you do what you have to do? How do you have the time to run a restaurant, have a family, and run this organization? And my answer was very simple. You just do it.
Yeah.
You don't just overly plan. Just go out and do it. It's very simple. Don't make excuses. Oh, I have to do this. Once this happens, then I can do this. Not that this is anything impressive, but I literally sent an email out to multiple different politicians and organizations. I was sending multiple emails to try to get involved and get them involved in Slice of Charity. And one of them was, and as crazy as today is, the inauguration day was to Donald Trump. And 2 days ago, I'll show you. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see it, but got a response.
Oh my God.
Again, I don't care what political side you're on. I don't care what you think, who is right, who is wrong. It's about helping, putting that aside. Right. So for me, that was like impressive. It was like, you know what, maybe that's the first line of communication to somebody that has a lot of access to a lot of ability to grow this Slice of Charity. I don't care if it was President Trump or President Biden or whoever. It shouldn't matter. It should not matter. Nothing should matter other than, are you a good person? If you're a good person.
How can you help serve the world and using the tools at our disposal and not being afraid to reach out? We're all human beings at the end of the day. We're all equal human beings and we're all in this together. And I love that mindset. And I'm excited to watch your charity grow and expand and help and serve more people. So what would you say, Anthony, is the biggest lesson you've learned in life?
Oh, wow, that's a big question.
It's the Blessings podcast. So we end with what's your biggest lesson and your biggest blessing?
Listen, I came from my biggest blessing is going to be my family. And I truly feel that. And not just my wife and my children, but my parents, my siblings. I have sisters. My mother, my father, and my mother were obviously a very big influence on me as a human, as a person. Yeah. My father's very tough, very old school Italian. My mother is very opposite of that. She is the most gentle, loving, caring, religious person you'll ever meet. And I think the biggest thing in life too is balance, right? Everything, whether it's what you're eating to what you're thinking, anything on one end of the pendulum, the extreme, is bad. It's balance. So my parents, which was one of the biggest learning lessons for me, taught me how to balance, because I had very different parents in a sense. They both had the same ethics. They both had the same morality, but one was a strong Italian father. The other one was this angel of a mother. And a big thing for me is a learning lesson, or whatever you want to call it. We're getting a little bit deeper. When you get married, it's about, for me, about bringing now your family, your wife's family together to make one family, right? That's what it's all about. It's something that I didn't learn until I was probably in the military, that it's not about the experiences, it's about who you're experiencing it with. Because you can travel the world by yourself, and that's great. But you know what? Even if it's right before your deathbed, maybe you traveled the world for 100 years, you got no one to talk to about with if you're by yourself. But if you travel half the amount of time with a group of people that you love and that love you, that other half of your life, speaking with them and talking to them about remembering those experiences, is what joy is about. Yeah, it's great. It's joyful when you're there, but it's remembering it. It's about sharing it with others. And again, that's a big thing with Slice of Charity, is bringing things together. Whether, for me, it's organizations and people. Let's bring organizations and people together. Let's not be selfish. Let's be selfless, where organizations are giving credit where credit's due. Other organizations are so afraid to talk and basically bring acknowledgement to different organizations because they're afraid that they're going to lose somebody that's going to give them a donation.
Yeah.
It's not about
You're in competition. Yeah, it's not about competing. It's about how much can we give.
And that's what bothers me about this world more than anything, is it's too competitive, where it's supposed to be bringing people together.
If you go at it with the mindset that abundance is unlimited and it's not about competing for this donor or that donor, although those organizations do have to make choices about how they distribute their funding, grants and whatnot.
Yeah.
It is more about the giving than the taking. And that's the mindset we should have. Thank you, Anthony. I love this conversation. I love what you're doing. You're a great guy. And so it's so heartwarming. It's giving me the goosebumps. I just love being in contact with people like you who have this energy. And when the more people we can surround ourselves with who have that kind of a shared desire to raise the consciousness and help humanity, it's a beautiful thing.
I agree. And let's make the world a better place. Every slice counts. That's my saying.
Every slice counts. There's enough slices to go around.
That's
Every
it.
slice counts. I love it. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you guys for your time.
Hey, everybody still listening, will you go give a 5-star review to this podcast? Mitzi puts in so much effort and so much love into this. She's brilliant. She deserves it. So I am going to go right now. By the way, by the time you hear this and you go give your 5-star review, you should be able to go find my 5-star review of this podcast. But I just want to thank you for what you're doing.